I was mid-laugh with my brother when Patricia Brennan started screaming through her megaphone again. My guests were floating peacefully on inflatable rafts, enjoying the July sunshine on Lake Meridian, when our HOA president marched down to the shore, clutching her laminated rule book like it was the Constitution itself. She wore her signature navy blazer with the HOA badge she'd custom-made at a trophy shop, and her face was turning that particular shade of purple I'd come to associate with her monthly power trips. "You are violating Section 12.3 of the Metfield Shores HOA bylaws," she bellowed, her voice echoing across the water. "No unauthorized watercraft on community property." My brother's fiancée nearly fell off her flamingo float from laughing. "Cool. Whose property?" she called back. Patricia raised her rule book triumphantly. "The HOA's property, of course." That's when I calmly walked over and handed her a manila folder I'd been saving for exactly this moment. "Read the deed, Patricia," I said with my most pleasant smile. She snatched it from my hand with a huff. As her eyes scanned the document, I watched her face transform from righteous fury to something resembling a deflated balloon. The color drained so fast I thought she might faint right there on my dock. Let me back up and explain how we got here. My name is David Morrison, and I'm a 42-year-old IT project manager who values peace, quiet, and the occasional weekend barbecue. My partner Ryan and I bought the old Victorian on Driftwood Lane 3 years ago, specifically for its lake access. The previous owners, the Johnsons, had warned us about Patricia during the closing. "She's been HOA president for 8 years, they'd said with exhausted expressions. "She thinks she owns everything within a 5-mile radius." At the time, I thought they were exaggerating. I was wrong. Patricia Brennan was 65 years old and treated her HOA presidency like she was running a small dictatorship. She wore khaki cargo pants with more pockets than any human could possibly need, carried a measuring tape at all times, and had memorized every single bylaw, covenant, and restriction in our 300-page HOA handbook. She referred to kayaks as potential liability vessels and genuinely believed fun was something that required board approval and proper documentation. Her husband Harold barely spoke anymore, just nodded whenever she ranted about fence heights or mailbox uniformity. The trouble started innocently enough. I'd invited a few friends over for a 4th of July celebration, nothing crazy, just some grilling and floating on the lake. Patricia appeared within minutes of our first splash, clipboard in hand. "Excuse me," she said in that fake sweet voice she used before destroying someone's day. "I'll need to see your lake usage permit." I told her I didn't need a permit to use my own lake access. She laughed like I'd just claimed I could fly. "The lake belongs to the HOA, Mr. Morrison. All residents must file Form 7B at least 72 hours before any aquatic activities." I asked her to show me where it said that in the bylaws. She couldn't, but promised she'd send me the relevant documentation. The documentation never came, but the harassment escalated quickly. First came the friendly reminders slipped under my door, citing various made-up violations like excessive splashing and unauthorized floating devices. Then she started taking photos of anyone who stepped foot on my dock, claiming she was building a case for the board. She bought herself a used aluminum rowboat and would patrol the water during my gatherings, shouting fake regulations through her megaphone, no music after 2 p.m. on waterways. Maximum of 3 people per dock segment. No tropical-themed inflatables as per the aesthetic guidelines. When I hosted my nephew's graduation party, she really went off the rails. 20 people, all family, enjoying a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Patricia showed up in her boat, wearing an orange safety vest and a whistle around her neck like some deranged lifeguard. She pulled up to each of my guests individually, demanding to see their resident identification cards. When my elderly mother told her to mind her own business, Patricia actually wrote her a citation on HOA letterhead for verbal assault of an elected official. That night, she sent an email to the entire neighborhood claiming I was running an illegal marina operation. The next escalation came when she issued me a formal violation notice with a $600 fine for unauthorized commercial use of HOA property. She'd taken photos of my brother helping his friend launch a paddleboard and claimed I was running a rental business. The notice was taped to my kayak with enough packing tape to survive a hurricane. That's when I decided to do some research. I went to the county records office and requested every document related to my property and Lake Meridian. What I found was better than gold. Turns out, when the neighborhood was developed in 1973, the lake already existed, and 3 properties had exclusive deed rights to it, including mine. The HOA was formed in 1988, 15 years later, and had no legal claim to the lake whatsoever. The deed was crystal clear, with a map and everything. The eastern shore, including 50 yards of water rights from the documented high watermark, belonged exclusively and in perpetuity to whoever owned my property. I made 30 copies of everything, one for every board member, one for every neighbor who'd received Patricia's Lake Patrol emails, and one special laminated copy just for her. The emergency HOA meeting was called for the following Tuesday. Patricia had prepared a 20-slide presentation titled Aquatic Anarchy, the Threat to Our Community Standards. She'd barely gotten through slide 3 when I stood up and started distributing the deeds. The room went silent as people read. Board member Susan Walsh was the first to speak. "Patricia," she said slowly, "did you never verify the HOA's jurisdiction over the lake?" Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She mumbled something about historical precedent and how everyone just knew the lake was community property. "But it's not," said Tom Bradley, another board member. "According to this, we've been illegally restricting access to private property." The board voted unanimously to immediately cease all lake-related enforcement. Patricia tried to object, claiming the deed must be fake, but the county seal and notary stamps were right there in black and white. Someone suggested she should probably apologize to me and my guests for the harassment. She stood up so fast her chair tipped over. "This isn't over," she hissed, and stormed out. But she wasn't done yet. 2 days later, I got a call from the county zoning department. Patricia had filed a complaint claiming I was violating watershed regulations. The inspector came out, looked at my property, reviewed my deed, and laughed. Not only was I fully compliant, but he noticed Patricia's rowboat was illegally moored on what was technically my water rights. She received a citation and a $500 fine for trespassing on private property. When she tried to dispute it at the next HOA meeting, I presented the inspector's report. The board had seen enough. Board member Janet Rivera made the motion. I moved to remove Patricia Brennan from her position as HOA president due to gross negligence and misuse of authority. The vote was unanimous. Even Harold raised his hand. Patricia's face went from purple to white to purple again. "You can't do this," she sputtered. "I've been president for 8 years. "That's exactly the problem," Susan Walsh replied. But the consequences didn't stop there. 3 homeowners who'd paid fines for lake violations over the years decided to sue Patricia personally for fraud. Their lawyer contacted me for documentation, which I happily provided. The lawsuit sought $22,000 in damages plus legal fees. Patricia hired her own lawyer, but when he saw the evidence, he told her to settle immediately. The legal bills alone cost her $15,000. Her real estate license was also suspended for 6 months after someone reported her fraudulent HOA activities to the state licensing board. She'd been using her position to tell potential buyers that lake access was controlled by the HOA, affecting property values and sales. The final blow came when the IRS got involved. Apparently, Patricia had been collecting lake permit fees from new residents for years, claiming they were mandatory HOA assessments. But there was no record of this money in the HOA's accounts. She'd been pocketing it, nearly $30,000 over 8 years. The IRS auditor was very interested in these unreported income streams. She was hit with back taxes, penalties, and interest totaling $48,000. The look on her face when she received that registered letter was something I'll never forget. She stood in her driveway, reading and rereading the notice, her hands shaking so badly the paper rustled like leaves in a storm.